Welcome to the AI Brief from the YPO Technology Network. I'm Stephen Forte. Something shifted this week, and it shifted all week, Monday through Thursday. On today's episode, we close that thread out with a defecting researcher worth more than most public companies, a job story that flipped twice in 5 days, and a billion-dollar bet on AI that understands the physical world. All week, we have been circling one question: who controls AI? We did it at the level of nations. We did it at the level of companies. We talked about hidden guardrails on Monday, U.S. export controls on Tuesday, France ripping American software out of its ministries on Wednesday, and the raw concentration of power on Thursday, the turbine fights, the franchise startups, the labs priced like sovereign states. Today, it gets personal because control of AI does not live in a treaty or a balance sheet. It lives in the people who build the thing and the people who have to use it. So we zoom all the way in to the individual. Let me start with the individual who matters most. On June 17th, Noam Shazeer announced on X that he is leaving Google to join OpenAI. Now, that name probably means nothing to you. So let me tell you why it should. Shazeer was VP of Engineering at Google and co-lead of Gemini, Google's flagship AI. More importantly, he is a co-author of a 2017 research paper with a deceptively casual title, "Attention is All You Need." That paper introduced the transformer, the underlying architecture that powers ChatGPT, Gemini, and Anthropic's Claude. Every chatbot you have ever used runs on his idea. He also pioneered something called mixture of experts, a design that lets a model switch on only the parts of its brain it needs for a given task, which is how the frontier models got both bigger and cheaper at once. Peers are calling this the most significant AI talent move of the year. And here is the part that should make any CEO sit up. Less than 2 years ago in 2024, Google paid a reported $2.7 billion to bring this man back. He had left in 2021 because Google would not ship a chatbot he had built. So Google bought his startup, Character.AI, a consumer app for talking to AI personas, rehired him and his team, and parked him at the center of Gemini. 2 years and $2.7 billion later, he is walking out the door to join the company that did ship the chatbot. Think about what that price tag implies. Google did not pay $2.7 billion for software. You can write software. They paid it for a person, and the retention apparently expired. This is what the frontier looks like up close. It is not a broad industry of thousands of equivalent engineers. It is a small numbers game, a few dozen people on the planet who genuinely move the state of the art, fought over like franchise athletes with 9 and 10-figure deals to match. Here is my read. In a field where the scarcest input is not capital and not compute, but talent, the retention of your 2 or 3 irreplaceable people is not an HR matter. It is a board-level risk. A single departure just repriced the competitive position of a $2 trillion company overnight. If I were sitting in your seat, I would not wait for the AI industry to teach me this lesson. I would write down the names of the 3 people whose exit would genuinely hurt, and I would find out this quarter how locked in they actually feel. Watch whether Gemini wobbles. Watch whether his team follows him out. That second part is always the tell, which brings me to the people who do not build AI but have to use it. This week, the AI job story flipped and then flipped again. New research from Gallup, the polling and workplace research firm, landed on June 18th. U.S. tech workers who use AI less than once a month are about 3 times more likely to have been laid off than workers who use it at least monthly, roughly an 18% predicted probability versus 6%. And that gap holds even after you control for age, education, industry, and how long ago the layoff happened. Here is the twist that makes it interesting. Only about 1% of laid-off workers named AI as the actual reason. So this is not robots taking jobs. The effect is indirect. The people who did not bother to learn the tool are the ones quietly disappearing from the payroll. That is the individual level. Now, the company level, where the story flips the other way. Forrester, a corporate research firm, found that 55% of companies that restructured around AI now regret it. And Gartner, another research firm, projects that half of the organizations that cut roles for AI reasons, customer service especially, will rehire by 2027. They are calling it the boomerang. So put those 2 findings side by side. For the individual, AI fluency has quietly become table stakes. The risk was never being replaced by AI. The risk is being the person who did not learn to use it. For the company, cutting headcount and capturing value turn out to be very different things. And the firms that fired the fastest are now paying twice to undo it. The actionable read here is simple. Fund the upskilling before you fund the restructuring. And be deeply skeptical of any AI business case whose entire return on investment is a headcount line. Removing people and creating value are not the same thing. The boomerang is what it costs to confuse them. Now the money, because the money this week told its own story about where the individual ends and the physical world begins. A startup called Odyssey raised $310 million at a $1.45 billion valuation, backed by Amazon, AMD, and Google Ventures, Google's investment arm, often written as GV. Odyssey builds what are called world models. Let me gloss that because it matters. Most AI you know generates text or images. A world model learns to simulate the physical world, predicting how objects, spaces, and actions actually play out. It is the difference between an AI that can describe a kitchen and an AI that knows the coffee mug will fall if you push it off the counter. That is the layer robotics, autonomy, and real-world planning need. Two details in this raise are worth your attention. First, the direction. Capital is rotating away from chatbots toward AI that understands physical reality, the same current as this week's other moves, Alibaba's robot models and Jeff Bezos's new venture. Second, the Silicon. Odyssey said it will optimize its models to run on Amazon's Trainium chips, Amazon's own custom AI processor, and rather than defaulting to NVIDIA. That is a small line in a press release and a large signal underneath it. For leaders in manufacturing, logistics, construction, design, world models are the brain that could eventually make physical automation broadly programmable. The thing that lets a robot or a factory plan in the real world instead of following a fixed script. It is early, but the capital is voting, and it is voting with Amazon, AMD, and Google money. And that Trainium detail is a quiet crack in the NVIDIA-only era of AI compute, which over time means more supplier choice and better pricing for everyone building on this. Give the hyperscalers credit for that. Breaking a monopoly you have to buy from is genuinely good for you, even when they are doing it for themselves. So that is the week zoomed all the way in. Now let me zoom back out one final notch because someone smarter than me framed the whole thing better than I can. Ben Thompson, he writes Stratechery, the most widely read tech strategy newsletter among operators, published an argument on June 15th that has not left my head. His claim is this: the AI lab's safety posture is not a brake on their commercial ambition. It is the moat. Sit with that. The same controls the labs justify with safety, keeping your data, restricting who can access the model, keeping the model on the lab's own infrastructure, conveniently also gather your usage data, keep the lab in control of your workflow, and slow down their rivals. Safety and commercial advantage point in exactly the same direction. The locked door protects you. It also happens to hold the key. And look at the week through that lens. Hidden guardrails, export controls, a defecting researcher worth $2.7 billion, a government protecting one company's turbines, labs priced like nations. Every single one is a variation on one theme. Control is the product. So here is the reframe to take into your weekend. Stop evaluating frontier AI labs purely as vendors. Evaluate them the way you would a powerful partner who is also a potential competitor. One who, through the very tools you eagerly adopt, is gathering your data, learning your workflows, and accruing leverage over your business one query at a time. It is the locksmith who installs your locks and keeps a copy of every key for safety. The question for the weekend is not which model is best. It is this: across all your AI dependencies, who is accumulating control over your company? And what is your plan for the day the partner decides to become the rival? That is the YPO Technology Network AI Brief for Friday, June 19th. I am Stephen Forte. If this was useful, send it to another member. I will be back next week with more. Until then, stay sharp.